Hi, and welcome to the Safer Tomorrow podcast, your resource for crime and violence reduction and creating more peaceful societies. I'm your host, Dr. Joe. I'm a community social work educator and a criminal justice researcher, and I am very passionate about finding solutions for my nation, Jamaica, to reduce the spate of violence. Today we have Mr. Leroy Montague. In this episode, he really echoes a lot of the sentiments that I have and my personal beliefs. If you really want to have a better understanding and insight into the minds of adolescents living within inner city communities, this is the episode for you. So join us today as we talk to Mr. Leroy Montague. Thank you. Today, I have Mr. Leroy Montague. He is passionate about enhancing the welfare of people, organizations, and society. His educational background is in theology, education, guidance and counseling, and behavioral science. Combined with his professional experience working with offenders, has enabled him to apply his knowledge and skills through numerous behavior change initiatives in communities and organizations catering to vulnerable groups in society. Mr. Montague was honored as a recipient of the prestigious Sheving Scholarship in 2020, which enabled him to complete a master's in behavioral science at Durham University in England. In his leisure time, he enjoys writing about social issues through his blog, staying fit, watching anime, socializing with friends, and connecting with nature. Above all, he remains a humble servant of God and an active leader at Ecclesia Bible Fellowship. Since 2013, Mr. Montague has been a volunteer with PALS, Peace and Love in Society, Jamaica. The organization has been working to help people in schools, communities, and organizations find ways to resolve conflicts since the early 1990s. Welcome, Mr. Montague.
Yes, it's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm passionate about the whole. I love my country. I love
Yeah.
Jamaica and I want to see Jamaica change. I believe Jamaica can change. And we are all in it as helping professions. We have that passion and that drive to see our nation changed. Yeah.
Yes, and I
Hmm.
am so grateful for your commitment to peace and justice and security work here in Jamaica. I
Yes.
mean, working in the schools, just this type of
Yes.
work is hard work. It's
Yes.
labor.
Everything.
It's
Yes. Listen to
it's
me.
intense.
Yes. I like was saying like everything that I do, it really intersects with the whole thing. With schools, communities, people. It's always about people and behavior and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you so much for dedicating your life to this. And then also
Yes.
congratulations on the scholarship and
Yes.
the
Yes.
masters in 2020.
Yes.
All right, so just to find out in terms of the beginning, how did
Mm.
you first become involved in peace, justice, security work? What was your personal journey
Yeah.
in this area?
Yeah. I mean, from an early age, I had this passion to understand people. I mean, I think my area, what I am doing is a calling. I mean, I
Mhm,
don't think it's just an academic pursuit. It's something that it's innate. So I grew up in the inner city, in Whitfield Town. I mean, Kingston 5, around those vicinities where crime and violence is commonplace. You would have grown up with people, you would have seen them taking a different path. Some people have died, so many things, right?
mhm,
But you, for some reason, because of the parental guidance that you had, because of my involvement in the church as a teenager and stuff like that, I had positive role models. I had people who really instilled in me and mentored me, and I was fortunate to go to one of those what they call the prestige high schools in Jamaica. Again, exposed me.
mhm,
We have to be real. These environments expose you to certain things that you don't get somewhere else, unfortunately. And as a
mhm,
result of these opportunities and this exposure, um, it would have propelled me to want to help other persons to see how I would help to guide them to make better decisions. So when I was in high school, my guidance counselor played a pivotal role, because that's Jennifer Jarrett, of course. She played a pivotal role in my life because I saw how she had this genuine love for students. She looked out for the vulnerable. She went the extra mile, and I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be like that. So I emulated her, and it also shows how impactful teachers or educators can be on the lives of their students. And I said I wanted to do something around counseling or guidance, something. It really didn't solidify. In fact, even after I left school, I kind of forget it, because everybody, you want to do the things that seem a little bit more attractive, but there was
Mhm.
something inside of you that wasn't pulling that way, you know. But I started my first degree in theology, guidance, and counseling, because I think it offered me an opportunity to help people understand the psychology of people, and also understand human behavior, even also as faith, how faith impacts people, and how it, in terms of the moral decisions and everything around that. So I started that. I'm around nearing to finish in, say, 2013, 2014. Janilia Brickian, who is the general manager of PALS, asked me if I would come and volunteer with PALS, and I gladly went. That year, we did some work in a Kingston high school. I won't name the school. They were having some
Mhm.
serious challenge with several students who, I mean, they had run-ins with the police and stuff like that. So when we did a needs assessment, we recognized that we had to pull these students and really deal with them. Um, During that program, we had gotten some funding from, I think, Multicare Foundation, one of them.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
and we were able to run that program and really intervene in their lives, you know, through life skills, helping them to develop critical thinking skills, to resolve conflicts. We also incorporated the parents to help them how to, you know, better parenting, build better relationships with their children, so that they can enable them to make better decisions and stuff like that. That was the inception of it right there and then. And then that led to one thing. I mean, by 2018, I wanted to do more. In fact, let me backtrack. So before I finished my first degree, I started working in the correction facilities, because I saw that it really meshed well with my outlook on life and really impacting the lives of people. So I went there not just to get a job, but to add to the whole rehabilitative process, right?
Mhm.
So all of everything, there are so many things happening at once, right? And so that's 2011.
Okay.
So we go back to 2014 now, or 2013, when I joined PALS, right? And I've been with them ever since. But I also wanted to do more. I volunteered with the restorative justice arm of the Ministry of Justice, as a restorative justice facilitator. And I worked with the August Town Center at that time, where we got the opportunity to help people who had disputes and who were referred there by the courts. Because often when people go to the courts, it tend to be retributive. So
Mhm.
what you find is that people might win, but they really didn't win the relationship.
Mm.
Relationships are still destroyed, but I won a case. So what
Mhm.
restorative justice seeks to do is to help people resolve their conflicts and try to mend those relationships, so that the community can be healthy and people can continue building positive lives, positive energy and stuff like that. So that was a pivotal thing, and it really helped me to give back to the community. And what I recognize also is that, because of the restorative justice case, it has removed some cases out of the court. It has
Mm.
helped the backlog of many cases in the courts, because the courts don't have these cases anymore to deal with. And I mean, people would have come to an agreement to resolve certain minor offenses and stuff like that. So here am I now, you know. I went on the scholarship, further doing behavioral science, and yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, so many things
Thing.
in
Yeah,
your
that's
story
it's
that I
so
would
many
like
things.
to, yes, that I would
Yeah,
like to just highlight. So I will
yeah,
start from the back. I mean, restorative justice. I think, I wonder if we truly recognize the value of restorative justice and that it works. You know, I had the opportunity to participate in one session
yes,
while working within one
yes,
of the communities, and I recognized the process was useful
yes.
and it worked,
Mm,
and so I appreciate what you spoke about in terms of it's not just about winning a case, but it's about winning the relationship,
Relationships,
right?
yes,
And the
yes,
impact that that has on the
yes,
larger
yes,
community.
yes,
And what I find interesting about your journey is just how much you speak about the people who influenced you.
yes,
And as we talk about crime and violence, and in some of my most, I could almost say all of my previous podcasts, episodes, what is really standing out is the role of persons, and
yes,
how much persons play a role in crime and violence reduction as well as
yes,
prevention. You spoke
yes.
about, your parents, you spoke about your teacher as a role model, you
The
spoke about role
church,
model
yes,
church, the role
yes,
models that you would find in the church. And so you
yeah,
had this community, maybe
yes,
not all in the same geographical
yes,
space, but all of
yes,
these persons who you were able to call on. And again, another point that is so important that you made was um going to a traditional high school.
yes,
Again, persons, I don't know, again, if we truly appreciate that when we go to a traditional high school, already it puts you at a disadvantage because of the exposure, the networks that you have access to, the teachers, the
yes,
resources,
yes,
that you have access to.
yeah,
While in other schools that perhaps are not traditional high schools, they may
yeah.
be under resourced, overcrowded, and faced with a number of challenges that
Mhm,
traditional schools are
mhm.
they don't face.
Yeah, which
you
was an
know
experience that I had when we were doing the program in that Kingston. In fact, we did other programs within schools within that locale what is that, South St. Andrew, South West St. Andrew, those areas.
Mhm,
And what you found was is that they were under resourced. There was the motivation for learning. The environment was more hostile. In fact, I remember when I was working at one school, I was grateful for the experience that I had not having to go through this, because I recognized that it was like night and day to me in
mhm,
terms of my experience at Calabar High School and with this school. And I'm saying it really goes to show how important education is in the fight of crime and violence, and giving people the opportunities so that they can develop themselves academically, intellectually, psychologically, to become
mhm,
productive members of society. And when they lack these things, they're going to look for role models elsewhere, people who might be negative, because they have not been equipped with these skills, so they become vulnerable. And
mhm,
yeah, so it's important that our authorities, that the educational authorities, that the government and whoever is in charge recognize that investing, and I'm not saying that they are not investing in education, because
mhm,
if we know the Patterson report that came out, and it highlighted so many issues within the educational
system.
domain, it
Mhm,
did say that we have been investing a whole lot in education, but the problem is what we are investing in, has it been effective? How
mhm.
has these funds being used? Are they being used effectively? So we have a lot of work to do, to do to really address these issues as they come.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. What do you believe are some of the personal qualities, values, skills that you hold true and close to your heart that propels you in this work and provides some of the success that you have had?
Mm. Social and emotional intelligence. Um, it's very important for us to understand ourselves, understand our environment, understand people, and being able to know to maneuver the differences and the circumstances that come our way as we interact in relationships and stuff like that. I think that's one of the big issues we face in our country when it comes on to um, that sense of security, that sense of emotional intelligence, also being able to identify our emotions, knowing how we feel and how that impacts our behavior, and how to express that feeling, and then know how to express what you want, right? So that people can have an understanding of how to address the issues that you're facing. Not being able to communicate that brings confusion, miscommunication, and all of these things. So I believe also empathy is important. You have to be able to experience what other persons are experiencing, try to experience or feel their own lived realities. Because often when experts go into these areas and the communities, I mean, some people might go with this sense of hubris that I know it all and everything when you really don't know nothing. Because
Mm-hmm.
really and truly, it's when you start talking to the people and getting them involved in the process that you will recognize that there are things that you do not know, and that they may not have the educational qualifications as you, but they possess knowledge, they possess skills that you need to be effective. So working with them and bringing them at the table is critical because they know what their problems are. Often people think that they know what people's problems are, so they don't consult them. And then when you do the implementation, it is ineffective because they were never a part of the process, right? So empathy is important, being able to listen to people, hearing them, what they are saying, hearing their heart, what is that they want, right? So effective communication is important too. Having an understanding of how people think. So, I mean, people who are in this work, it's important for them to understand some level of psychology, sociology, how groups and functions in society and communities and how it impacts the individual and stuff like that. Um, my theological background is also important in terms of how my faith drives what I do and how I see people and I see the value in people because I am looking at them, and we talk about the imagio Deo, the image of God, looking at somebody and seeing potential in them, seeing that they can be more than what we actually see, right? I mean, this is important to being effective in the area in the field. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I mean, very, very important points. So, how do you think persons can cultivate these kinds of qualities, right? Because sometimes we hear them, but we're like,
Yeah.
okay, yes, but how
Yeah.
do I get there?
Yes. For me, it didn't happen overnight. Because listen, we all have biases. We
Mm-hmm.
all have biases. We remember we carry a baggage. We are coming from a similar circumstances. How do we see people, our perspective, our views of people? And having done behavioral science, I had to encounter this issue about our own biases. I mean, look at me, working in the correctional facility, working among people who have committed crime. I mean, even though I understand based on where I'm coming from the industry about the social issues that may drive people, those external issues, I still believe that people have responsibility and accountability for their actions. How do I treat it somebody who has been charged for murder? I
Mm-hmm.
have this strong sense of justice, though I'm empathetic, though I'm
Mm-hmm.
loving, though I'm caring. I try to hold these things in tension. And there are times when I struggle to, you know, I know, and I have to treat somebody equal. I have to treat them fairly. But you have that struggle. But I
Mm-hmm.
have come to understand that professionalism is important. I've come to understand that I am not perfect either, and I may have been given opportunities that others may not have gotten. But put that aside, how do they cultivate these qualities? The reality is that you have to just, as you work in the field, as you volunteer and you give yourself over, opportunities come and you will learn from other people. For me personally, before then I was in the church, I did youth leadership, I got certain opportunities to interact with people, so the skills developed over time, right? You have to also recognize who you are, do a self assessment. What is it I lack? What is are my weaknesses and my strengths? And then you determine what do you need to work on, how you need to get there. So that's really it. And I am still learning because there are
Mm-hmm.
some things that I am not strong in, but I have sought to develop myself in these areas. And as I volunteered at PALS, as I work within the correctional facilities, as I work within communities, I get the opportunity to be put in positions so that I can learn these skills, so that I am forced to
Mm-hmm.
engage people. So if I am not like communication by virtue of being in that space, I will have to communicate with people. I will have to listen to them, right? Because I mean, I remember in the past, one thing I struggle with, um, I think I would listen to people, but I wouldn't listen to them. But I have
Mm-hmm.
learned over time to listen, to hear them. You don't have all the answers. No matter how good your intentions are, you have to listen to people. Yeah, so get involved in your communities, get involved in the organization, police youth clubs. We talk about Project Star doing so many things. Contact the organizations, ask them if they want help. Many organizations are struck for cash because they're non-profit organizations. They don't pay most of their persons who work. So they would be glad for the help if people would just come and volunteer. So we need more people to volunteer their time and their effort within these efforts. Yeah.
I like how you just naturally, it's like you naturally went into what I wanted
Yeah.
to speak about next, which was the volunteerism, because I heard
Yeah.
as you spoke about your own journey that
Mhm.
volunteerism played a kind of key role and feature in
Yeah.
your own development, and then you
Yes.
focused
Yes.
on it here. What do you think is the volunteer landscape? What the volunteer landscape is like here in Jamaica?
I think there I've been in situations where people ask about doing things volunteer. Probably one of the biggest issues that they face is where they're located in Jamaica, where the programs are. A lot of things are focused in Kingston and St. Andrew. A
Mm,
lot of these programs, if we are to be honest, I mean, sometimes they go to Montego Bay, which are major cities, but a lot of people in the rural communities are left. They
mm,
don't have anything. The rural areas often forgotten. So I believe that people within these domains, they want to volunteer, they want to get involved. They might have police youth clubs, um, but what other things are there? I mean, I could encourage people to work with the schools, right? Do you have any skills that you can give back to your community school, a basic school, a primary school, something? You together as a community can recognize a problem and come together as a team and say, "Lead, we want to address this issue." You probably can reach out to the police youth club or some organization to help you. How is it we can help you to achieve your goals, or teach us ways how we can form a particular group to address a particular problem, right? I mean, they would be glad for the help, because I believe this mantra that um um I am because of we are because we are. So my understanding of self is not separate and apart from the community, right? So my identity is also tied up in the community. Something often that Western societies have really generally don't really, because of the strong sense of individualism. But
mhm,
when you work in these areas, you recognize the importance of community and how individuals find themselves within community with that support system that offers to shape their identity and their understanding. Not that it is stripping you of your individualism, but it is offering you a sense of meaning and purpose within the domain of community. So these things are very important. So work with your communities. Look where you can give aid or give support. The church youth groups, so many things can happen. So but as I said earlier, I think there more needs to be done for the rural communities, because most of the work is really centered within the what you call it now, the capital, or the more not rural, urban areas.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you. So, as you could you share a little bit about your work, your training program, some of the principles as well as the actual activities that you use in your work with young people?
Mhm. Yeah, in our work, I've gotten the opportunity to work with teenagers and younger children. And what you realize is that when you're working with them, you have to know the difference, because younger children, they are easily distracted. So you know that most of the things that you do to teach them about conflict, they have to be visual aids, songs, sounds, movements, so that they can get the principles, get the ideas. When you're working with teenagers, you have to understand the popular culture. You have to know what's going on the streets or what's going on the ground, so that you can connect with them, because they're in a stage where, the identity versus role confusion. You find the rebellious nature right there. They know it all. You don't know more than I do. I want to have that. So understanding them, so you don't approach them as a know it all. You don't beat down on them. You try to understand them. You talk to them, level with them, understand where they are coming from. So in these sessions, we look at things like um, perspectives, or our environment influence how we see people and see ourselves, right? So understanding perspectives is important. So in understanding people's perspectives, it means that you need to communicate with them. You need to listen to hear what others are saying, what has happened to them, how has their own lives been. Because sometimes you work in these inner city communities and you're doing the programs, and you will have in a session, right? teenagers, they're there, and what you find is that you might have groups or cliques within the own session because one road is in violence with another road and their relatives are involved in this violence, so they stay far from each other. And then you are discussing topics about forgiveness or reconciliation, and some of them are say, I can't forgive nobody, because that makes you look weak. To show emotions or the positive emotions make you seem weak, because in a society like ours, showing negative emotions, anger, and these things makes you seem strong, right? So to take the low road, or to say, all right, you're in a conflict with somebody, when you evaluate it, you realize that there's nothing to gain from it, right? You can probably just walk away from it. But sir, sir, me never trouble, or sir, me no weak. If me don't do that, sir, then I gonna think me an idiot. So people, the whole idea of self-esteem and ego plays such a big role in these sessions. So we explain to them about emotions and understanding your emotions and what they are communicating, being able to speak to people and tell them how you feel, being able to tell people what you expect from them. So one of the big issues that we realize that they are challenged with, they don't know how to identify their emotions.
Mhm.
And because they are not able to do that, they will say, sir, I feel away. And you're
Mhm.
asking, what does feel away mean? What are you saying? Are you angry? Are you disappointed? Things like that. Challenges also that we face within these settings are literacy issues. Because of, again, the social context, you might have some can't read well, so you have to find more creative ways of really communicating the material, and that is where the music comes in. So you use popular culture, you use a lot of music, and you ask them, what is this music saying? What you think what the man has say? Do you think these lyrics are positive, or you think these lyrics kind of impact your decisions? Would you follow what he's saying? you know um how do you think this impact the culture and the society? Things like that. You get them doing activities, role play, you understand, games, playing games, building trust, building a sense of where they can recognize that you're trying to connect with them, so because you have to build that trust, because they don't really trust people easily. You come in them community, and I wonder who them uptown people, yeah, them stush IT people, yeah. Yes, that's just how it is. Sometimes you have to also understand that people are either unemployed or self-employed. So the lady have her stall down a town, and you want her as a parent to leave the stall to come to the session. When she come to the session, her day of wage are go jeopardize. What are you gonna do? These are non-profit. So sometimes people have to explore things like stipends. You have to ensure that you have meals at these sessions, because it's reality you're dealing with. And there have been cases where people are saying, "Mm, if you don't have meals, you ain't coming."
Mhm.
And stuff like that. So you have to understand the context and the environment, and know, and you always have to have this individual in the community who is like that point of contact with the people, between you and the people,
The
because them know the
gatekeeper.
community. Yeah, so they will know where the people live, them go for shanique, them go, you say, you remember the program I keep, remember to come 6 o'clock and stuff like that. These things are very important. So I hope I answered the question.
Yes, and beyond. And one of the
Yeah,
things, because I talk about this with my students
yeah.
recently, about music. And there is this whole discussion and debate about whether music influences behavior.
Mhm.
What are what if you recall, what's some of the feedback that you get from your students? What do they believe?
All right. When I remember we spoke about this with some of them, and even I did it once also when I was doing my guidance and counseling practicum a couple of years ago, and the students said to me, it influenced them. It was kind of weird. It says when it comes under violence, um, if them here say, if we got to take up a gun and shoot a man, them not gonna take up a gun and shoot a man, but one of the things that I recognize is that in more subconscious ways it does impact them and their decisions. But I don't think when you ask them the question, would you take it up? It seems more shocking that they will tell you no. But
Mhm.
how in other ways does it make you aggressive? Does it make you feel like, listen to me, I'm a bad man, and if a man tell me something or tell me about my mother, me have to lick off him face. Something like them
Mhm.
things there. So me and I go for your gun, but one thing might lead to another and to another. But one thing they made and they told me is that when it comes down to sexual activities, it
Mhm.
influenced them more in that area, but not so much in the violence.
Violence.
but
Not so much in the
they
direct violence that
yes,
they. Mhm.
but sexually, when it comes down to having sex and stuff like that, yes. So they, in that way, I found that quite interesting when they made
Yes.
that dichotomy between the violence. But they said, yeah, sexually, yeah, them think it can influence them, because we know the psychology of the prefrontal cortex, and how that influence our reasoning and stuff like that, and the whole idea of the pleasure areas within the mind, within the brain, and stuff like that. So yeah, music is powerful, but the debate
Mm.
continues: to what
It,
degree music influences our behavior?
yes. And before we continue, I just wanted to insert an idea that I had not thought about before. I was having this discussion about music and the influence of music, an ongoing debate between a friend and I. And there was a gentleman who was sitting down and he was listening to us debate. And eventually we invited him into the conversation to ask his perspective. And he said, actually, what, he gave us another perspective, which was as somebody who is trying to become known in the, for example, dancehall industry,
Yes,
right? And you when you're what you're singing about are violent songs.
yes,
And he said you may not know anything about violence, you never touched a gun before, that was not a part of your history. But he says once you begin to start singing the song, it is the image that you're portraying. So in a sense, people expect, and then you begin to expect of yourself that you need to have a gun. And so
yes,
it's almost as though there is this kind of slide in to violence as a musician, because of the image portrayal and the desire to keep up that
yeah,
particular
mhm,
image.
yes,
And I
yes,
think this kind of reminds me of what you were speaking about earlier. And it's important to understand the belief systems,
yeah,
because when persons respond in a particular way, we might be appalled at the response, but the truth is the responses are undergirded by a belief system. And for
yeah,
example, you were speaking about that belief system being that um any response in humility, for example, or
yes,
de-escalating a situation
yes,
is actually seen as weakness and
yes,
not strength. And being strong in in some of the communities, and being perceived as weak is actually more endangering and a challenge
yes,
to persons than it
yeah,
is, you know,
yeah,
than yeah,
yes. Yeah.
conflict.
The whole environment itself, growing up in tough communities, being tough is how you survive.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up with my sisters in the community, I mean, there were unsavory characters. If they had their way, they could have, I mean, it's real life. But my mother was a strong, some things we wouldn't tell her, because she would go and confront the people them.
She
Yeah,
was a
she will go and,
warrior.
yes. So we don't bother tell her if my sisters pass and a boy call to them no bother go say nothing to her, because stuff like that. And because you had to be strong, so she demonstrated this strong persona. Sometimes you don't think they are too emotional, but them love you. But the environment just, it brought that out in people. You had to be strong, because people will walk over you. And to a
Mhm.
degree, it's true. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but it's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So, in terms of the persons that you work with, do you find that perhaps you have to use different strategies based on, let's say, how involved the young persons might be involved in? Sorry, let me repeat. Do you find that you have to use different strategies with young people who might be more involved in criminal activities or criminal behavior than those who, you know, may just be vulnerable in that space?
Definitely, especially working within the Department of Correctional Services. Remember, they would basically do a assessment of the individual to determine their risk. We talk about criminogenic factors, the different
Mhm.
factors that would basically lead somebody to commit crime. So when you look at some young men, I mean, they are not there's nothing major. So probably what you do, I mean, you would have some counseling sessions with them, get to know them a little better, get to understand what's happening in their lives. Um, the whole idea of numeracy and literacy to some degree, you'll see that you just need to minor interventions for them. But there are others who have been steeped into criminality. I have been in situations where boys say, Mr. Montague, you don't understand, if I put on the gun and go back a road, Mr. Montague, me I go weak, and them I go come back for me and my family. So we have to protect our family, we have to protect our ends. And sometimes you ask yourself, what should you tell this individual?
Yeah.
I mean, I will say to them, listen, it's difficult because I can't protect them, right? I
Mm,
can't protect them. They would have been come involved in a gang situation where they have information and other people, and now they have been caught and they are in this institution and they are saying, well, Mr. Montague, if I go out, I can't just turn the angel, I can't just put on the gun. What do you say to them? Well, I try to encourage them and let them understand that the world is bigger than the space that we have really placed ourselves in. And whilst I can't guarantee, because you have to be real with them, I say to them that they can change. There are people who have left gangs. There are people who have led better lives after the gangs and stuff like that. But you would have to be removed from the community, because if them
mm,
go back into the same space, they are going to. There is recidivism is a must, because the space is conducive to them turning back to that lifestyle. So one of the
mm,
best things, often with probation officers and the aftercare service, will indicate is that they don't go back to that community,
yeah.
right? Because that's the best way to help them. They will require a lot of intervention as it relates to counseling, sometimes psychological evaluation, stuff like that, social intervention, considering things like skills and vocational training and stuff like that, because you want them that when they go out, they have some certification to do things to be gainfully employed. It's also important that the community plays an important role, because in Jamaica, sadly, we're not so forgiving, of people who commit crimes, we're not so embracing of them, people who are
Mhm,
ex-cons and stuff like that. We treat them really badly. In fact, when we put somebody, incarcerate somebody, we don't think them should come out. You hear them say that's really key. So
mm,
you're lost forever. There's no hope for you. We really need to change how we see people. We really need to have more grace as a society, be more forgiving. I'm not saying that you must remove accountability and responsibility. I'm saying that if somebody is going to re-enter the society, you want them to re-enter in a way that they can give back positively. But if you have not put these things in place, if you're not welcoming them, if you're not forgiving, if you're not willing to work with them, then they're going to return to that life and they're going to make all of our lives a misery. So, as again, remember we talked about community earlier. It's a
mm,
community, because if one hurt, the whole of the earth. You understand? And our society is feeling that right now, because we have some individuals, life has dealt them, not dealt them so well, not treated them so well, and they have interpreted it in a way that Babylon system is against them, and them have to do what them have to do to survive. So yeah.
mm.
Mhm.
So you may have touched this a little bit a while ago, but I just want to ask it in this way to see if there are any
Mhm.
differences. How would you handle situations where, participants in your training sessions have deeply entrenched biases
Oh yeah.
or,
Oh.
conflicting viewpoints?
Mm. Yeah, entrenched biases. Let me tell you, these things are hard to let go. Doing behavioral science, you understand how biases work. Biases are have been built over a period of time, because how you have experienced people in this situation. You have to let them understand that there's another world out there,
Mm,
that the world that they have been taught or that they have learned is just a small cog in a bigger thing. So you have to let them see another perspective of life, understand that there are greater things to achieve, because when you talk with them often, they do not have hope.
yeah.
you know they are limited in how they narrow in their reasoning and their thinking. It's just about the little domain that they're in. So you try to get them out of that. Sometimes it's important to take them out of the bigger group and smaller groups and engage them, and to challenge those biases using facts, right? So yes, you have heard it says, but let us test this to see if it is actually true. Is it true? Is it the general thing out there? And when you look at it, no, it's not the general thing. But we are not discarding your experience, but what we are saying is that it's not true for all, and it
Mm,
doesn't have to remain this way. And this is the best way you can get them, treat them, interact with them one to one, understanding.
mhm,
And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes work over a period of time. It takes also, after you have done that, if you see the need, you have to probably help with some referral. You have to probably engage police youth clubs to connect with them. The support system is going to be integral right there, because there's where they're going to get the mentors, people who are going to really show them another side, because
Mhm.
who they know and what they know only limits them to a certain viewpoint, right? So biases take a while to change, and sometimes our programs are short term because they're funded. We want long term programs, and sometimes the argument is that should you start a program when you won't be there forever?
Mhm.
And it's better to do something than do nothing, right? But we need longer term programs that can
Yeah.
be sustained within these communities to really see change. It not gonna happen overnight. There's no way a country can end up this way over decades. These
Mhm.
entrenched views, and we expect that we're going to change these things overnight. So I mean, I encourage people who are working in the area of peace and justice, working in their communities, working, to be, to hold on, to have hope, to do your little part. You may not be able to fix everybody and fix the world. We're not calling you to be the savior of the world. What we're calling you to do is to touch lives, as much lives as you can, and that will go a far way, because you can't carry the burden of the world. Somebody pass the baton on to you, and there's somebody waiting for you to pass the baton on to them.
I just love the way you think. I mean, I really appreciate all of what you're saying. I mean, it's like resonating with me. um,
Yeah.
but I just want to ask, what would you consider as your most successful training session? Or one that you enjoyed the most and you believe you had the most impact.
Okay. Um, hmm. I remember when we were working with some students in a particular school. Uh, Very difficult. At points, we thought that, listen to me, it not seem like we are making no headway. I mean, at times they will have conflicts whilst we're teaching conflict, and you're like, God, it doesn't make sense. You separate the group, you go deal with that issue. You try to encourage them, let them know why we are here, why we prepared all of this for you, because we care about you, because we love you. And even in all of that, remember one, a father showed up at one of the sessions. He was there, and he came there to support his child and stuff like that. And it wasn't usual for you to see fathers, it's mostly
Mhm.
mothers. And to see that he was involved and he wanted to see better for his child was really, really encouraging, right? Not only that, is to see children. I remember one of the participants in this program. I mean, a couple of years after I was going about my business, and somebody called me. I want to go. I want them, and I said, "Mr. Montague, how you doing?" and stuff like that. I was happy to see the person, and to see that they have not really turned the wrong way. That they have. I mean, this was a difficult child, and
Mhm.
to see. I don't know when exactly the change happened, but to know that you would have been instrumental in instilling some positive value, some hope, or whatever in that child's life, it means a whole lot. And when they feel loved, when they feel appreciated, even when they might do bad, even when they're doing bad and they feel that, it can really do something to really transform them. I also remember a session that we had in Jonestown. This was like was it in 2022, early 2022, that we were doing some program. This was being funded by the USAID, but it was being done through the gender arm of the UE, something like that. And we were in the session, guys, and I don't know what happened. It appeared that from the community there was a particular conflict, and I remember when we had a break, on the compound, one parent came in on the compound and attacked one of our participants. That was wild, right? We were like, what's gonna happen? And you are there as a volunteer, you're like, how do we solve this? Because if we don't do something about this, this can spiral out in a worse conflict in this community. What we did, we had the participant and the conflicting individuals to go to the police station, and our the general manager, generally we went there. We tried to restorative justice basically had to be ensued to understand what was where was this coming from, and we basically break down where far the conflict coming from, and we were able to resolve that. And me, I'm telling you, that was good, because if we didn't resolve that, listen,
Mm-hmm.
these inner city communities, where that can lead to a
Yeah.
parent hit another child because of she and the child and her child is in something. um I mean,
Community
another person
war.
yes, just like that,
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I just imagine what we would have prevented by our intervention right there. So it can be really wholesome. So these things are
Mm-hmm.
memorable. Those were memorable. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so I mean, just jumping on a little bit into a little bit more of your correctional officer life. Um, what would you say are some of the insights that you would have received being a correctional officer? So you would have been a peace ambassador,
Yes,
but was there any different or deeper insights that you had as or have now that you're a correctional officer?
definitely. Before I went into corrections, how I saw prisoners or people committed crime is totally different from how I see them now. Um, I'm being honest, my biases, you boy, them people that are wicked. And listen to me, we need to get rid of them people, them are crosses in the society, they are menace. This is how I felt, because I am coming from the inner city. I see where how they can harm people and how it destroys lives and families. So over time I developed based on my own experience and attitude towards these people, prejudice to against them. You see, when I went into the facility and I started engage these people,
Mm-hmm.
I saw a different side. They are humans too. I mean, I am not minimizing the actions or the crime that they committed. But when you start to engage with them over time, you even forget the crime that they committed,
Mm-hmm.
because you recognize this is a human being, right? There are many things that would have brought them into what they did or brought them into the circumstances, and you look at them differently. You no longer have this bias against them. You don't have to should demonstrate this prejudice towards them, but you are more caring and helping. And you sometimes look back and you ask, when did this happen? Right? And one of the important things that we have to recognize is that they're there as punishment, not for punishment. So there's a sense of professionalism that you have to demonstrate. You're not there as judge, jury, and executioner. You understand? You're there to treat them, to help to rehabilitate them. And if you are going to rehabilitate them, you have to have an attitude towards individual. Because how are you going to effectively rehabilitate somebody who you resent, or
Mm-hmm.
you don't like, or you see a particular way? It won't work, and they will sense that negative energy too. They will know how genuine you are. So these things are very critical within that domain. So I have learned that it has helped me to deal with my own biases and my own prejudice towards people who sometimes are hard to love.
So this tension between security and rehabilitation, how
Yes.
do you manage it?
Yes, dear. I knew you were going to go there. How do you manage it? Rehabilitation, because I would consider my work in PALS and stuff like that as interventive, as proactive, trying to prevent them from reaching and that's one of the great things I
Correct.
like. I have experienced both worlds.
Hmm.
You understand? How do you? I know that is interventive, but when they're in here now, how you balance it? Professionalism is key. You have to remember that whilst you must treat them fairly, you must respect them. You're a professional, so you have to keep those boundaries. Right? You have to ensure that whatever you are doing is in line with the rules of a correctional institution. Say for example, a ward says, Mr. Montague, I want to go and do this. I want to go. Whilst you understand that because of the security nature, you can't get to do that, it doesn't mean that we don't value you. But you have to understand that there are certain rules that you have to abide by. Um, but you still ensure that you give them mental health services. You still ensure that their needs are taken care of, that they get their visits, because these are things are important. You talk to them, you counsel them, you engage them in different conversations. You show that you really care about them and what they are going through, right? But in the same breath, if them break any of the rules, there are consequences for it. But when you build that relationship with them, they don't see you as an enemy, because they
Yeah.
knew you had their good at
Best
heart. You had
interest.
good
Hmm.
intent, best interest at heart. So, but it comes with building relationships first and foremost, right? And building relationships means being fair. You have to treat them fairly. You have to demonstrate respect towards them because they're coming from environments where they don't understand respect. You understand? They see respect as weakness, like, oh, and stuff like that. So when you demonstrate, you call them um respectful names, like Mr. So
Mhm.
and so and so and so. You don't call them dirty boy and stuff like them. You don't demean them. That's what they are used to. Because
Mhm.
I had situations, where me I refer to them, my guidance and counseling background, my social science background manifesting, I mean, I treat, and they couldn't appreciate it. Them think me weak. Them think me weak. I had to go to them and say, listen, boys, I I treat you this way because I value you. I treat you this way because I consider you to be equal, a human being with a worth and value, and you can contribute positively to society. You have to get your minds away from this idea that when people treat you nicely, it's because they're weak or they have some ulterior motive, right? Because they're not used to it. You understand? Their minds are so fixated in within a particular domain. um, you have to ensure that the literacy and numeracy is an important part of their development, because you want them to come out to be able to contribute positively to society. So you have to help them in that way. Things like vocational training and stuff like that. So these things balance. That it's not all about you need to do this and give orders and do this and do this. I mean, a lot of people have some negative views of correctional officers outside, or they view,
Yes.
because that's it. But a lot of them, they have not been into the institutions. They have not understood. They don't know that correctional officers are counselors, are father figures, are mother figures. All of these things you have to play, because some students, some of our wards, they do not have fathers, or the father died. They are being abandoned by their parents. They have been living on their own since 14, since 12. These are real life situations. There are boys there with baby mothers, right? So when them come in at the domain, I am talking to them and I'm seeing them as a child, but in their mind, they are an adult because they have been
Mhm.
living an adult life for so long. So when I say to them, you have to do this, I am disrespecting them. Who is you, Mr. Montague? You are disrespecting me. If you don't understand where they are coming from, you will react negatively towards it. I said, boy, and no manners. But if you understand the psyche of what is going on, this young man has been living an adult life. He is an adult. Him say me have a room, me have my furniture, and me buy it. I have been doing all of these things. You can't. So that's how he sees himself.
Mhm.
He has a baby outside. He sees himself as an adult. So conflicts will arise because of that sense of miscommunication or misunderstanding. So this is why having that cultural competence or cultural awareness or understanding the social circumstances or social issues that are in your country will help you to really relate with them better.
Yeah. So what would you say is maybe the number one myth of a correctional officer? What do you believe maybe the Jamaican society believes about correctional officers that is not correct?
That they are beaters, that they beat prisoners. And some people think people are uneducated too. Yes. I mean, yeah, they do actually do that. A lot of people make some assumptions that they beat. The first things come to people's mind when they think of a correctional officer is that a beat. You understand? And it's
Mm-hmm.
far from the truth. You understand? I am not saying just like in the police force or anywhere in the world that you may not have incidents where excessive force might be used, because we have heard about cases like that. But to a great extent, that's not the general situation. That's not it. It's about rehabilitating people. Mind you, I will tell you that there are a lot more resources that is needed to carry out the work, and I don't think there's much that has been. We need a lot more, and
Mm-hmm.
as again, the psyche of the nation needs to be changed. Our attitude towards people need to change, and it did not only change from uh, just as a citizen, but even as the political directorate, in terms of how we see individuals and if we think they can be rehabilitated. I don't think that we are putting much money or much resources in place to really rehabilitate people the effective way.
Mm-hmm.
Institutions, infrastructure needs to be developed. A lot more things need to be done. A lot
Yeah.
more.
What would you say is one key message you would want to give to? I know I kind of lumping everybody together. If you want, you
Mhm,
can break it out, but to the wider society about this field of work.
mm. All right. All right. Working in this field, one I will tell you, it's not about riches. um we generally as social scientists, I don't think we when it comes on to the monetary aspect, them not treat you the way or we ought to be treated like our other counterparts. But we are so critical to society, we're critical to the development of society, because we're talking about human capital. If people are not functional in society, if they don't function well in society, how will we grow? So all of these people, guidance counselors, teachers, psychologists, correctional
Social
officers, every
workers.
work,
Yeah.
social workers, these people play such an integral role in sustaining the development in society. Because if people are not well, it everything else goes awry, everything else is messed up. So I believe really and truly, people need to recognize that we play an integral role, and that more needs to be done in terms of how we in terms of getting more of us, getting more counselors in the schools, getting more social workers in the schools, addressing the issues at the community level. There's a lot more that needs to be done. There's a lot more needs to be done. But what truly is important is the fulfillment that you get. As I say to a lot of persons, working in these types of field is a calling. It's more than
Mm-hmm.
academic. It is a calling, because not everybody can do it, because it demands certain skills, certain soft skills that a lot of people find challenging to acquire. And not everybody is skilled at dealing with people. And so look at it this way: when you have impacted these lives and you have transformed these lives, you're not only transforming individually, you have transformed the family, you have transformed the community and the nation. So the seeds that you have sown grow up to be trees that bear fruit, and it is far reaching, far reaching. Remember I told you about my guidance counselor? Do you know that the other day when I completed my education and training diploma, she was my supervisor. Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm talking about like 20, probably 20 years later. These things, when we look at these things and how impactful we can influence lives of people, right? It is really dynamic. It is really awesome. As I said to you, there are sometimes that I see youngsters on the road and they remember you. They remember
Mm-hmm.
you from the correctional institution. They say, Mr. Montague. I'm gonna say, how are you doing? I hope you're staying away from bad company and stuff like that. And when you see that them really making effort, them going back to school, them, I mean, nothing no more fulfilling like that. There's nothing that really gives you a sense of achievement like that, because you're instilling in people's lives. And I think that has more eternal value. Yes, we need money. Yes, we need to pay it well. But I'm talking about that there's a greater meaning and value that not even money can buy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Sometimes.
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
In what ways do you believe ordinary citizens can participate? I mean, for me, and what this particular podcast is advocating for is a whole society approach. And a whole society approach, we do have persons like you and I. We're social workers, we're guidance counselors, we're behavior specialists. That we, in a sense, we dedicate our lives to this area, but not everybody is called, as you say, to
Yes.
dedicate their lives in
Yes.
this way to this area.
Yes.
Yet we are all able to contribute. What are
Yes.
some of the ways you believe just the everyday
Yes.
citizen can contribute to
Yes.
violence reduction and
Yes.
peace, justice, and
Yes.
security?
Yes. Um, as I tell them, a lot of these organizations need volunteers. Youth clubs, you don't necessarily have to be the person doing the counseling, but you can be the person serving the food, serving the meals. You can be the person helping with the games. You can be everything matters. You have contributed. You play an important role. You are not insignificant. You are very significant to the process, because in truth, if you're hoping to impact the lives of individuals and communities, you have to get everybody involved. Everybody has to be involved. And if everybody plays a part, find something to do, I mean, contribute in some way, I mean, it goes a far way to really empowering people and to really seeing transformation, because it's within that ecosystem everybody finds a purpose, finds a meaning, you know? And think about it. When people recognize that they're a part of a process, them own it. They
Mm-hmm.
own it, and when they own it, it will be successful, because they will ensure that it will be successful, because they want it to continue, because they have stamped their names on it. I was a part of this. I helped to do this. Yeah, it is important. So yeah, that's what I would
Yeah.
encourage them to do.
Thank you so much. And as I mean, as we close, you know. As we close, what is one thing you would want persons to remember about young people
Mm.
and young people in this space?
Yes, young people in this space, they did not make themselves that way. They are products of their own environment. They were born in a particular situation, and whatever we feed them, we talk about the social learning theory, you understand, social copying, social learning. They observe from as a younger tender age. They have been observing this, so to a degree in society we have to take a certain level of responsibility for what has happened to them. What are the value systems that we have embraced as a society? What are we inculcating in them? So yes, they may take up the gun, yes, then become this. But ask ourselves, look in the mirror, what part have we played generally as a society in what they have become? And when we recognize and see it that way, then I think change will happen. Then I think we'll recognize that if we have contributed to that, it means that we can make a turn, we can make a change, right? Change the value system is important. Value systems are important in terms of how what we instill, what we teach them wrong and right, and how we live. It's not just about what we say, it's about what we do as a society. Yeah.
Mr. Montague, I
Yeah.
can't express how much almost all of what you've said. I
Yeah.
mean, apart from where I have no experience,
Yeah.
has echoed my
Yeah.
own sentiments. And so I really thank you
Yeah.
for just, well, one, your commitment to this
Yeah.
space and the work that you're doing, for sharing your own experience, your journey, how passionate you are about the areas, for the skills and the strategies that you use. Truly, from as I listen to you, I'm like, yes, it is a calling, and you have
Yeah.
certainly been determined. And let me, what's the word I'm looking for? You have sought to equip yourselves in order to serve these young
Yes.
people well. So I want to just really thank you for coming and sharing on Safe for Tomorrow podcast. It was a delight having you, and I know my listeners and viewers would have, really garnered a lot from what you would have shared.
Yeah.
And yeah, so thank you so, so much. And for my viewers and listeners, thanks for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's Safe for Tomorrow podcast, and to our Instagram and Facebook page, that is Safe for Tomorrow pod. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day.
Yes. It was a pleasure. All right.
Yes, so, so much.
Yes.